Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors. Dr. Allen chats with successful investors exploring their journey from setback to triumph. Through this window, we glimpse the truths that inspire our guests to invest abundantly and flourish in all areas of life. And now your host, Dr. Allen.
Welcome to Creekside Chats with successful multifamily real estate investors, where we delve deep into the lives of our successful guests to learn the secrets of thriving to flourish abundantly in all areas of life. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. Today's guest is a serial entrepreneur and life and business coach to entrepreneurs across the globe. As the CEO and founder of Smooth Sailing Business Growth and Smooth Business Growth Podcast, 15 minutes of pure marketing strategies proven to move the needle. She leads a rock star team to support entrepreneurs who are seeking fast-paced business growth. She loves sharing practical tips and business building and content marketing strategies to help others grow their business faster. She has been featured on Entrepreneur on Fire, Best Ever Show, Business Innovator Radio, Your Partner in Success Radio, 12-Minute Convos, The Real Estate Syndication Show, and more. Welcome to the show, Lyndsay Phillips.
Thanks for having me, Alan.
Thank you for being here, Lyndsay. Well, let's get to know the phenomenal woman behind the success story here. I like to start, I think, to really know somebody, we need to know the child within the adult. So if you can go back to your childhood and think of a time, as you look back on it, you can see that, yeah, that was a transformative time, moment, experience, whatever, in my life. And it, in some way, shape, or form, has helped to make you who you are today.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a specific time, but I mean, I was definitely influenced by my parents. They were always, do your best, achieve for more. My parents moved from England to Canada so that we can have a better life, which was pretty gutsy. I mean, they left family behind. So I think that impacted me in regards to, you just step into it. And if you want to change your situation or change your life or make things better for your own kids or yourself, it can be scary, but, do it anyways. And my parents have always, instilled that confidence that you can do whatever you want. Again, always trying your hardest to succeed. And yeah, that thread has always been throughout my life for sure.
Did you have any mentors, coaches? Were your parents or family members entrepreneurs, or was this something you picked up on your own?
Man, your paths go in strange ways. I went to university and was, in a totally different arena. I lived on the other side of the country by myself and just had an opportunity to create my own business. It was a totally different industry. It was in the car industry. And it was more almost out of necessity because we didn't want to be tied down to other people telling us what to do. And we saw an opportunity for making money and a few of us to work together. So just sort of started this business together. And then, I fell out of business. And then, so going back into entrepreneurship when, 15 years later, it felt not so scary. Like I've done it before. I was successful. I can lead people. I can figure it out. I'm confident in my abilities. So it wasn't so scary, but there is like no one in my family or friends really that were entrepreneurs. Just like what happened when I lived out west, just a few of us got together and I don't know, just dove in. Crazy.
So this was while you were in college?
I was young. So I was 25 and lived out west. And yeah, we were in the car industry exporting vehicles to the States and worked in an export department. And then we're like, we can do this and do our own and not have to answer to these people. So a few of us just left and started our own thing and we're really successful in the industry.
Wow. Well, I don't know anything about the export business, particularly in automobiles, but that sounds like a a huge step. I mean, it just seems like it would be, just from looking outside inward, it looks like it would be a business dominated by huge players. Is that the case, or?
It was a very small knit community in BC and Alberta. And we had connections already working in the export industry with like DOT and NHTSA and customs and all that kind of stuff. So branching into our own business or just going out on our own, it didn't feel like a big deal because we kind of already had those connections and relationships. But I mean, as a young girl, you know, in my mid to late 20s, it was definitely a male dominated space for sure. So it was hard for me to kind of gain respect at first. But then people knew I knew what I was talking about and I got stuff done. And so, yeah, I was just one of the guys.
Well, it sounds like a huge step to me. And I don't know, as you're talking about it, it's like, oh, it was no really big deal. I kind of find that hard to believe. I think.
Yeah, I guess when you look back, because it was just kind of, you know, organic and that's the way your path went, right? But yeah, I guess looking back, it's, you know, it's kind of surprising.
Yeah. Major step. But you had never really thought of being an entrepreneur prior to that time, huh?
Not at all. Didn't even. I was went to school for museum management and curatorship, so in the arts. And I did work in the arts field, managing fundraising campaigns for a company. And then actually, I forgot about this. So I was helping someone out in the interior design field. And we actually went on our own and did our own because she went through a divorce and whole big crazy story. So we actually had an interior design firm for a little while and then got a side job and then kind of your paths just take you in the weirdest ways, Alan.
Yeah.
And then I ended up being in the car industry and we had it was Nordland Enterprises. It was Norm, Deb, and Lyndsay. And no, we were crushing it. We were doing really well for years until the US Canadian dollar went.
Oh, yeah.
Live and learn.
Things beyond our control.
Yeah.
So you bounced back from that. So the next question is, it's easy to talk about our successes, but any successful person has had to learn to deal with disappointments and setbacks. And when your business crashed, that may be one of those major disappointments.
Absolutely. I lost a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell us about it. Maybe not that setback, but whichever setback that you find was one of your major disappointments and setbacks, and how did you deal with it at the time, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I think when the dollar changed and I just moved back to Ontario, newly married, and we had to disband the business, lost a good chunk of money. So basically started our marriage off in the, negative financially. And then I just kind of felt like I was taking a step back, having to go get a real job, so to speak, and work for someone else and doing the resume again and the interviews. It was horrible. And then, but I also didn't really want the stress and the responsibility that went along with having your own business. So it was kind of like a double-edged sword, right? So I was kind of okay with it for then. So I didn't really have any immediate aspirations to kind of dive into entrepreneurship again. It honestly wasn't until I was, had small kids and I had 2 part-time jobs making $11 and $14 an hour. Granted, I didn't want a full-time job at the time because my kids were young, but I just I'm like, there's gotta be more than this. I'm smarter than this. I've got ambition. I've got passion. I've got drive. So that was kind of I think my ego kind of got in the way. I just this isn't for me. And I wanted to then carve out my own I was ready, to dive back into entrepreneurship, but didn't really know how. And then started working as a VA part-time got got a couple clients. So I was doing the part-time job and the business stuff all at once. And I was burning the candle at both ends. And then I took a leap of faith and quit the other jobs. And I went, all right, I'm doing this thing. I'm just going to have my business and that's it. And I haven't looked back.
So you started out as a virtual assistant, partly out of just desperation because your part-time job was not paying anything and probably boring as all get out.
Yeah, and I was basically running someone else's business for, pittance.
Yeah, yeah. And so how did virtual assistants lead to becoming a market leader?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I was on my own doing the VA thing, but I knew there wasn't any potential. That whole dollars equals hours equals dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And there wasn't enough of me to go around. I did start to hire help. But then as I grew, I just realized that there were a lot of things that I hated about what I was doing. I wasn't happy. I was taking jobs that I didn't enjoy. I had a really hard time scaling it so that I wasn't involved all the time and the business could just grow naturally without killing myself. So that was really rough. And then, through different situations and coaching and masterminding, realized that it was okay to niche down. It's okay to say no to stuff that you don't want to do. And it was crazy. I'm like, turn business away. That just seems like counterintuitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I loved content marketing. I loved the creativity of it. And my clients were doing really well because of it. And I just decided to kind of rebrand a little bit and niche down to content marketing and cut out the things that I didn't like. And as soon as I made that decision, a month later, because my messaging changed, obviously, I just got a flood of new prospects. So
Wow.
It's like, you think you're turning business away, but then I had this flood. So I was like, whew, thank goodness. But then I had to figure out how the heck to deal with all the new business and scale and systems and teams. And every corner has its own challenges, right? But as long as you just know what your goal is and what your focus is and what you need to do, you get through it.
Well, that is so. I mean, that is so interesting. You're not the first person who has told me that they scaled back and they focused, and as soon as they did that, their businesses blossomed. But yet, that's such a hard thing to do.
It is.
Psychologically and emotionally, that's just really, it's so counterintuitive, as you said. So you did it. How did you do it? I mean, how did you work through all that emotional and psychological baggage to say, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, I think part of it was that there were a lot of things that I was doing that it did not bring me joy, and I was not happy and I was frustrated. So I knew I needed to cut that out. And I don't know, I'm stubborn and I'm like, I'm going to make this happen come hell or high water. And I'm also an internal optimist. Like I know what's going to happen. It may not be the way I expect or I plan, but I don't know. I just have that internal belief, and all it did not all go perfect. And there were a lot of mistakes and errors. And I remember crying and freaking out and talking to my coach. And I was like, okay, I feel like I'm going backwards and I'm screwing up. But I just okay, how can I fix this? And I had to make so it was a killer month. I had to make systems. I had to make processes. I had to train my team properly. I let a client go that I was not enjoying and was just causing me grief, which was kind of a weird thing to do. I've never actually fired a client before. But it's I had to clear the cobwebs to get the path. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it got smoother after that. And I learned lessons, right? Yeah. You have to have processes. And now my brain is always in logistics processes, map it out so that it's consistent. And I'm not having to oversee every little thing and micromanage, because who has time for that?
Right. Yeah. So how many years have you been doing this? When did you actually make that cut back and really start specifically becoming the marketing expert?
So I always go by how old Emily is. Because I was VA, she's 11, so that was 10 years ago. How long
Yeah.
have I been? I probably did the VA thing for 3 years and
Mhm.
then niche down. So it's been a while. 6 years? I don't even know where the time goes, Alan. It goes by so
Yeah.
fast I can't keep track.
It does when you're having a good time, doesn't it?
I know.
Yeah. That's really life is just strange that way. When you're struggling and in misery, the time just drags by. And when you're having a good time, it just evaporates.
It does.
I don't know. Why is life that way? I just don't know. Well, interesting life story there. Um, so you didn't really, it doesn't sound to me like you intentionally sat down and did all of this, I don't know, investigating and going, I'm going to find my purpose in life.
Nope.
And yet you found it. Um, and um, and you've blossomed because of that. Um, you did mention that there were coaches and masterminds. Talk about that and how did that? Surely that had to have some influence and
Oh,
effect there.
absolutely.
So talk to us about that process there.
It made you feel okay about making decisions. Like you kind of had that extra voice of like, here's what I'm thinking of doing. And they kind of either talk you into it and like plan it, or they're like, I don't know if that's the best decision. And then just having that extra voice of reason, and they've got more experience dealing with other businesses, the coach. And so it helped me make the right decisions and move past shiny objects or things that were not going to really bring me a huge
Mm-hmm.
profit or ROI. Because sometimes what seems like a good idea, and we can kind of get, easily hooked into creating and building new things where, you could sink all this time and effort. And then you're like, how do you even know if it's going to work? So that was super helpful. And just helping with those implementation pieces of things that were in the business that I didn't have the expertise and
Mm-hmm.
they did. And same with people that were in the membership. It's like, again, launching my own podcast. I had never launched a podcast before. I was scared out of my mind. And just other people that have done it and can share, well, I tried this and it worked. I tried this and it didn't work. And giving, sharing resources and, running, in the group, hey, here are my ideas for what it's going to be. And just kind of getting that feedback to really dial it in. So that it launches on the right foot. It was absolutely invaluable. And it keeps you accountable because otherwise you just float around or I'll do it when I have time,
Mm-hmm.
which means you're never going to get it done. So if you have a coach and a mastermind, you are held accountable and you achieve your goals so much faster, which was really key. And I was determined to, grow, and I have
Mm-hmm.
grown 60%, every year. And so I honestly think without that, I don't think I could have done it on my own.
Yeah, interesting. So I suppose you still have a coach. You still in mastermind groups and.
I'm in between. I switched coaches and then did that for a year. I feel I've got enough experience under my belt and have helped other businesses grow as well. So I feel pretty dialed in right now in regards to what my plan is and what my actions are for the next year. I mean, who knows when I need to go up to the next level and you plateau and you've done everything that you feel that you can do, how do you take it up a notch?
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe you need a different coach or a mindset coach or a different level coach for where you're at in your business. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So right now I know my path. I just need to buckle down and do it.
So how do you integrate life, your personal life, and your business life, And I was talking to a very seasoned business person who has been in business and is a business coach. And he was talking about this aspect of balancing your life and your business. And he said, that's just an absolute myth, that it's not about balance, it's about integration. And he said, sometimes if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to work 18 hours a day. Sometimes you're going to work 8 hours a day. Sometimes 4. Some days you're not going to work, but it's a process of integrating the two together. So think about that just a moment here. Folks just tuning into our program today, Lyndsay Phillips is with us. She's the CEO and founder of Smooth Sailing Business Growth and Smooth Business Growth podcast. So, Lyndsay, how do you integrate life and business?
I think you can't have any hard and fast rules like I'm not going to work on Fridays, or I refuse to do this, or that you like have to put in 14-hour days in order to be successful. I think that's a myth. I think it's whatever you carve it. And it's just, I think, knowing yourself. Like, I know I can work in the evenings a couple of times to get some projects done or work on my own stuff. But if I do that too much, I feel burnt out. And that does no good to anybody. Or like on weekends, I may put in some time on a Sunday morning to get some stuff done, but it's on my terms. And I, like yesterday, I took most of the day off just because I felt like, no, I need to be outside. I need to clear my head. I just kind of listen to myself. And then I also know days where I'm like totally gung ho. I'm ready to crush it. I'm like, I'm sharp. I'm creative. And then I just like buckle down and get so much done. And then just kind of knowing what my goals are and being accountable to myself that I want to achieve this by this date. So therefore I'm going to buckle down on XYZ to get it done. Or if I'm feeling like, I'm okay if it takes a couple of extra months to fine tune things. And like, I know when I feel guilty, if you will, for not working on my own business, I know how it makes me feel and I don't like it. I love when I have time to work on my own business and not just client stuff. So I really just listen to myself. And again, with, COVID, and the kids being home so much and schooling, like I have had to adjust and make concessions for things that come up in your life. And you have to forgive yourself, you know what I mean? And not feel guilty if you're not putting in 14-hour days, that here's what you're supposed to do in order to be successful. And if you're not doing that, you're not cutting it. I think those beliefs are just do you more damage than good.
Sounds like mountains and mountains of wisdom there that you have boiled down into just a few words there. A lot of things I think we could go into much, much deeper in conjunction with that integration of life and business. I think it's a real important component, and oftentimes one that I think is forgotten, particularly in startup businesses there. Unfortunately, we're running out of time here. So tell the folks, our listeners here, viewers and listeners, how they can get in touch with you.
You bet. So they can go to smoothbusinessgrowth.com. And I have the content marketing side of a business. I also do marketing for real estate investors. So you'll see both elements of the business there. There's a free social media roadmap on my site to help people get more consistent with their social media. And some great tools for real estate investors. There's 2 weeks of free content. And so you can get all those resources at smoothbusiness.com.
Sounds wonderful.
Smoothbusinessgrowth.com. Sorry.
I'm going to have to pay your site a visit here. Lyndsay, it's been a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for being on our show today.
Thanks. Lovely to have a Creekside chat.
Thank you for tuning in to Creekside Chats with Successful Multifamily Real Estate Investors, brought to you by Steed Talker Capital. Steed Talker Capital works with both new and established investors nationwide, creating opportunities to flourish in all areas of life. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steed Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steed Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures great and small flourish abundantly. For resources to enhance your well-being through multifamily real estate investment, connect with us online at capital.steedtalker.com.